All right, I'm here with Zach Phoenix on
Well,
YouTube. Zach, give us uh, give us a brief rundown of who you are and what you're about.
all right. Well, my name is Zach. I'm 29. I've been in Japan for just over 8 years now, and I came over as a student originally, but after I graduated, I was like, I'm not leaving. So I work with digital media, and that's basically what I've been doing since I got out of college. I worked for a company for a couple of years, but then I switched to working for myself and opened up a production space in Ginza, and because of the pandemic, we had to close it down, but we were able to open up a different space in Omotesando. I'm originally from Ohio, and I've got a lot of connections back in Ohio. Even though I keep saying I'm going to eventually go to Arizona someday because I went there for 2 years in college. I don't have any connections there. And every time I fly back to the States, it's always to Ohio, and I really miss the food and kind of the atmosphere there. But I'm comfortable here, even in this tiny box apartment. And on YouTube, I make a lot of videos about what I do here in Japan, or just the fun stuff that I do. And I don't like doing the clickbaity, oh, look at this amazing wacky thing in Japan type of video. I don't like doing that. I just like doing filming the fun stuff that I do here, and
Right.
that's what my channel's been all about.
Well, that's cool, man. So you said you originally, did you first come over here 8 years ago as a student, or had you
Yeah,
visited Japan before?
I came over here. Well, I visited Japan 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago
Okay.
as a student. It was during my between my freshman and sophomore year of college at Arizona State. We were doing a summer study program
Hmm.
for Japanese language students, right? And I liked it so much. In 2012, I came back for Sophia University's open campus, and in 2013, I transferred to Sophia. So that's
Awesome, man.
basically how I came over here. Yeah.
So so
And
so
a lot
what
of
what got you initially interested in Japan? I mean, everyone has their own
yeah,
reasons,
everyone's got their story,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. When I was in second grade in elementary school, my elementary school was one of those K-8 schools, and
Hmm.
each year we had like a mission country. It was one of those Catholic schools, and the mission country for my second year of elementary school was Japan, right? So first year I remember it was Korea, second year was Japan, and then third year was China, right? I forgot what the other years were, but um, when Japan was second grade was Japan, right? And that was also simultaneously when Pokemon became a massive thing in
Yeah.
America, right?
Yeah.
And we were all playing with Pokemon cards, and some people got in trouble and all that, but we were playing the games, and I think it blossomed from there to video games to anime
Mm.
to thinking to myself, wait a minute, okay, hold on, this is pop culture Japan. I want to know what Japan really is like,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
people come over here with thinking Japan is what you would see in an anime, right? And in some cases, you could see a lot of similarities, or especially the slice of life type of animes, right? But I've always asked myself, okay, what is this country really like? How does this country, work? It's one of America's biggest allies. We
Mm.
studied that in school, right? And I've always been curious about how that came to be, and how that's affecting day-to-day life here in Japan. And that's basically my motivation for coming over here to study.
Yeah. Well, cool. I mean, that was cool that your university offered, you an
Mhm.
opportunity, and you saw that and you took the chance, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you actually came over here, you first came over here just to visit. So you kind
Right.
of
It
had an
was a
idea of
six
what
week.
Japan was like before moving here, in a
Yeah,
way.
I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of had an idea because I knew a few Japanese people here and there when I was in school,
Mm.
so I had an idea of what to expect. And even when I came over here for the first time, I was a little bit. I mean, I knew to expect crowded trains. I knew to expect what to expect from intercultural relations, right? How to communicate with people and stuff. But even then, it takes actually getting here and experiencing Japan to actually you know
Yeah.
learn culture, right?
Right. Did you study Japanese at all before you came over here, or
Yeah, well,
no?
before I came over here for the first time, I had a
Mm.
semester under my belt, so it wasn't enough. But I had the basic communication part down,
Hmm.
and I took a class while I was here, but during that time as well. But then I studied more when I was in college, and then I studied when I finally moved here. But when I graduated, I actually took private lessons for a little bit longer just to try to pass N2, and I didn't pass N2. And I don't know if I will pass N2 or not, but I feel like my Japanese ability has gotten a lot better after I left an English speaking environment.
Yeah, yeah. That tends to
Which
happen. That tends to happen when you're surrounded by more Japanese, you know. So,
Well, that was the thing though at my university. A lot of the students were returnees or international students, right? So, um, because of that, my opportunities to speak Japanese were not as often. And even my Japanese classmates were like, "Oh, why do you not use Japanese?" I'm like, "You guys aren't using Japanese." It's like
mm,
if I was to use Japanese around you guys, you'd be kind of upset because you're like, "Oh, we came here to this is our English environment. We want to use English on campus." I'm like, "That's why I don't use Japanese around you guys."
yeah, yeah. No, it's funny though. Like I mean, maybe you find this situation too, but it's whatever the majority
Right.
of the group, what they're speaking, that tends to be the go-to language. You know, like if you're with a group of Japanese people, of
Right.
course, you default to Japanese. You know, so
Well,
um,
that's the thing though. My classmates, especially the ones who are fully bilingual in English and in Japanese, because some of them they could only read and write English.
mm,
Their speaking ability wasn't there. But my classmates were more than willing to help me with my Japanese homework and help me understand a lot of the grammatical stuff.
mm,
Excuse me, but yeah, like if I was just speaking to them like in between classes in Japanese, they even if they were speaking in Japanese amongst themselves, they would be like, "Well, you're the foreigner guy. You should be using English around us because you're our practice." I didn't like that at all when they said
mm,
that. I was
mm.
like, "I'm not. I'm just here to. I don't really care about the practice side of things. I just want to communicate." And I don't know. It was,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. When you feel, I mean, I'm sure it's both ways too. But when you feel like you're just
right.
being used just to someone to
Yeah. Oh,
practice
yeah.
on,
You're
yeah,
exactly right.
yeah. So now what's interesting is so you came here as a student and you graduated, but unlike many foreigners who come to Japan, you opted out of going the easiest way to get a work
Oh,
visa
yeah.
here, in that is teaching. So how did you
Yes.
get into? I guess this could also coincide with your YouTube as well. But how did you get into video production, and how is getting into that industry in general in Japan?
That's actually a good question
Mm,
because my freshman year of college at Arizona State, right? My freshman year first semester, I was actually a film and media production major,
okay.
and I didn't like I mean, I liked the making making videos and stuff, but I was more interested in getting into TV at that
Okay.
time, and I didn't like where I was going with the career track. It wasn't going to actually take me to where I wanted to go. So I switched to Japanese, and then when I came over here, I switched to economics. After I went to Sophia, so it's kind of gone full circle, right? I
Mm,
started studying about film and media production. I was really interested in, back in 2010 when I was a freshman in college. YouTube was starting to get its legs, and that's when people were starting to get paid from YouTube as well.
right.
So, um, yeah, so it went from there full circle, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, I was always making stuff for YouTube, but I didn't really take YouTube seriously. Like, I didn't actually spend time and effort to making stuff on YouTube until around 2014. I got really influenced by people making GTA Online content, and I had a capture card for my PlayStation 3, so I was just recording that, and
Mm,
then I gained a few friends and some followers from there, and then I was actually encouraged by someone like she was a YouTuber now. She's a streamer now, but she gave me a shout out on her channel, and she was like, I really like your Japanese content. I want to see more of your Japanese videos. And I think from there, I was just like, yeah, maybe I should, because I was getting kind of burnt out on making GTA content. So I was having a lot more fun making travel videos
mm,
and videos discussing Japan and stuff. So yeah, that's basically how I switched from there. And um, because I already had that, sort of video production skill under my belt when I was looking for jobs when I graduated, one of my friends was like, "Hey, we need a video editor for this company." So yeah, why don't you, come and interview and join us? I was like, okay, let's do
Okay.
it. So
Nice. About who you know, really, you know. So, now
yeah,
what?
I mean, that was the toughest thing too. When I was looking for work, at compared to then compared to now, like I know a lot more people now. I have a much wider network. So I feel
Right.
like if the pandemic actually costs me my business and what I do now, which there's a chance it might because of how Japan's dragging its feet right now, right?
Mm.
With the vaccine and stuff. So because of that, I feel like I'm in a better place to land on my feet again, even if even if I take a job I'm not really happy about, I'll still probably have a way for me to move
Right.
forward. But
Well, like with the skills, like obviously you go to like a studio and whatnot, but those kind of skills can transfer over to, I mean, with the pandemic and all, I mean, remote
right,
work, like editing
exactly, yeah,
is can be done remotely, so I mean, um, now one thing I had a question about though is, maybe Tokyo is different, but that's where most of these jobs are. But how is the initial
right.
pay when you get into
Oh
this sort
God,
of
it was
work?
horrible.
Because compared to some other jobs, people might be thinking, "Oh, that sounds fun to do,"
Yeah.
but it's not so fun if the pay's
Oh,
not good either.
yeah, I mean, well, because I run my own business right now, I
Hmm.
basically pay myself. But
Right.
my biggest expense right now is taxes because
Hmm.
for whatever reason, like I think most of my income goes to taxes right now. So that I mean, I have to get over a certain threshold for me to become or comfortable there. That aside, my initial job out of college, like the pay was just horrible, and
Hmm.
it wasn't enough. And that's actually why I started, or how I was able to start my business was I was just doing video editing as a supplementary thing, and I was just getting paid from there. You know, to you know live a little bit more comfortably, right? But um, yeah, it was like 11, 12 US dollars an hour, but they
Hmm.
they did cover food expenses for me, and they also covered transportation. That
Okay.
company did. So
Yeah.
they reimbursed all of that. So
So it was like was it like contract or say shine or like, I mean, because if
no,
they're
it was like a
reimbursing you,
contract.
okay,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was a contract. Yeah,
okay, that's still good that they're reimbursing your travel and whatnot. But so
right.
yeah. So had you always wanted to sort of do your own thing, like have this
Yeah,
independent streak, or
like
because for a lot of people making that plunge, especially in a
right.
country that they're not from, is could be quite scary. Like how did you
Like
just
I
take
was
that step?
never interested in. Well, yeah,
Hmm.
that's a good point too. I was never really interested in doing, just being one of those corporate dudes, like corporate slave type of dudes, right?
Hmm.
I mean, some people like that because there's a lot of benefits that come with it, but I don't know. For me, I'm much more of a fan of working for myself, and
Hmm.
I feel like I get more satisfaction from my work when
Right.
I'm able to do that, right? And at the time, I was really encouraged by my professor, my senior thesis professor. Yeah, I was really encouraged to do just that when I was graduating from college. The toughest part was just figuring out what to do for work, right? When I was in college, I actually wanted to get into diplomacy and foreign relations, right? Helping American companies, with their dealings and goings on with Japan,
Hmm.
especially companies that are having trouble with their Japanese counterparts. Like I have no problem. This is one of those cultural things. I got no problem yelling at somebody. I'm like, hey, you got to stop screwing this shit up, or else you're gonna, you know, like for example, the Takata company, which
Yeah.
has those faulty airbags, right? Like nobody from the big three automakers actually sent anybody over here to figure out what the hell was going on. And that's the type of job I would have loved to do, is like actually go in there and inspect everything and figure out what's going on top down, bottom up, left and right, see why this is happening, right? And
Right.
what's the cultural response to do so. And in some cases being the hey, stop screwing this up, kind of actually getting in their face and talking to them directly instead of being the whole indirect thing that Japan is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that sort of response would be controversial and they wouldn't like it, but I feel like it would be a lot more necessary. And that's the type of job I would have loved to do out of college, but I don't know, I wasn't able to find that mostly because I didn't know any way to get into that sort of thing, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah,
That's it's interesting you say that. I mean, that kind of work is, it's not really, you can't really, like, how would you
right.
describe that position. You know, like that's you know what you're doing, but at the same time, um, cultural
Right.
differences and stuff. Because you would think
Yeah.
someone would, companies would like that, to help
Right.
other cultures kind of understand why they do things and whatnot. But
I
as
feel
we,
like I've just like, well, I feel like for this sort of job, I feel like I kind of invented that position because it's not really something that most companies think of. And I know some companies have that sort of thing internalized. Like they have, here, like for example, like I'm just giving an example. Chevrolet, for example, they might have or GM, they might have a branch office somewhere in Asia where they have their representative that deals with that sort of thing, right?
mm,
So yeah, that's I mean that might be what that would be like if I was to you know join that sort of company. But most companies don't have that internalized. So
mm, mm,
I wrote down a bunch of ideas for businesses that I wanted to start up, right? And one of them was that, but I didn't know exactly how to get into that because I didn't really have the network, right? But then my other idea was video production because I already had the skill set and the network for that. So
right. Well, I mean that sort
yeah,
of answers the question. Then you're like,
yeah,
well, hey, I like doing this. I have the means to do this, and I have the
yes,
network to do this.
exactly.
So let's do this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like I said, I mean, because of the pandemic, I feel like it's been sort of zapping my enthusiasm for it a little bit. And I've been,
Uh-huh.
really getting interested in making more of my own digital media content for myself. So that's why I've been thinking about, should I just switch to doing something different for work? But I don't know. That won't be decided for a while because
Right. Yeah. Right. Right now, I mean, it's a bit. I wouldn't say volatile, but you don't know. I mean, like it seems like now the rest of the world is sort of getting somewhat back to normal in some places, and Japan is still sort of in this limbo state. You know.
yeah, it's
And
kind of weird here right now. I mean,
mm,
it feels like, I think everybody is, especially young people, they don't trust anything that the government's saying. And anytime like everyone was just crowding into bars that aren't advertised on social media or anything like that right now, they're just they're like speakeasies because of the the Tokyo blanket ban on alcohol at restaurants. So it's a weird time, man. It's weird.
yeah, that's when I saw that, I thought, okay, I'm not really in favor of a lot of. Here's, I guess, where I stand on it. It's like either do one extreme or the other. Like
Right.
if you're gonna do a lockdown, just do it like how Australia did. But if not, then don't do this like half measure,
Yeah.
because all that has done here is the numbers keep going up and down, the
Yep.
yo-yoing, but nothing
Yeah.
really changes, and it's just sort of, it just
Well,
pisses everybody off. I
it
think.
does. Yeah. I mean, you know what JR was told, like Japan Railways was told by the government to cut the number of trains in the morning. Um, I don't know why. I think they were thinking that okay, less trains will force people to stay home. It's not like it's a typhoon, right?
Yeah.
And even then, people were like, "Oh, you're going to come into work, even though there's a typhoon. There's no trains running." In this situation, it's like there's still trains running, so and there's been like zero push for. Well, right, like a lot of companies stopped doing remote work back at the very start of the new fiscal year in
Mm.
April, right? So ever since the start of April, trains have been jam packed, and when they cut down the number of trains at the government's request, it was like worse than like their platforms were packed, the trains were sardined, and
Yeah.
it was just like 2 mornings of sheer hell that I saw on. I mean, I was luckily able to just go during around noon to work around that time, and even then it was still pretty crowded. So
Right.
JR the other day was like, "Hey, government, we're not listening to you right now. We understand what the deal is. We're not creating a coronavirus super spreader event on our trains. We're going to increase the number of morning commute trains." And apparently, the government officials were like very upset to JR that they were, unilaterally abrogating what
Defying
was.
them. Yeah. So. Well, it's.
So even like the government's you know pets, right? The larger infrastructure companies are like, "Hey, it's a bad idea."
Yeah. And you would think, like, I've been you've been here long enough too, but I've been here long enough to see that it's like they everything that they try, the government, the Japanese government here, like always is either met with a lukewarm response or backlash or something, and it's like they never learn
They
from it. It's like
never
it's like they
give
just
the
keep
right.
trying to do something that doesn't work, you know.
Yeah, I
So
think they're doing something based off of what the government bureaucrats' reality is, and not with the actual reality of the people on the ground, right? And
hmm.
I feel like that's been a recurring problem because I think the government still thinks that Japan's in this like 1980s business mindset. In some cases, it is, but
Some
like,
places they are. Yeah.
yeah, and business leaders here are basically like, that's not the case anymore, guys. This is something that this sort of response, especially to a pandemic, isn't going to cut it, right? So,
Yeah.
what
Now,
they really should have done was try to figure out how to domestically produce a vaccine fast, and then that would have, precluded any sort of
well, yeah, because they wouldn't have to.
regulatory problems.
Exactly. Like, I mean, that isn't that supposedly the biggest hang up with the vaccines is they have to get them approved here, but aren't they
Yeah,
sitting on tens of thousands of, is it Pfizer
that's
vaccine? Yeah, and they're just sitting there. you know.
because they have a shortage of healthcare workers. And
Hmm.
here's the thing: I've got two relatives in my family who are both pharmacists, right? And they've been every day they've given out like hundreds and hundreds of shots, and it's a very smooth process. Like there's so many different. I mean, I remember at first when the vaccine came out, it was a little bit confusing for people because the demand was so high. But now it's like, I, my parents are like, yeah, but just pick a day whenever you come home and we'll get the shot for you, man. Even getting a test, like for me to be able to fly, like, it's very straightforward. You just
Mm-hmm.
sign up and there you go, right?
Hmm.
And if you go to like the Walgreens or whatever in Cincinnati, you pull into
Walgreens, yeah.
one line and yeah, one window you get the COVID test, the other window you get a shot, and you're good
Yeah.
to go, right?
Yeah.
They give out the one shot J&J vaccine right now, and it's a completely different world in America right now, and I'm just like, man, we're falling behind now. But
But
this time last year, Japan was under a state of emergency, but there was no restrictions, right?
mm,
Under movement, unlike in America where people were getting arrested for kayaking by themselves in the middle of the ocean, right? So it's a completely inverse situation, but at the same time, I feel like it's a completely different world.
yeah, yeah, it is. And last year I thought we were a bit lucky in the sense that we didn't have any super hard lockdowns. Like there was still freedom of movement. It was just the society
Right,
itself said, oh, let's not travel.
right.
So that in a sense that worked, but
Yeah.
at the same time, um, the the kind of wishy-washiness about. I think the thing is with the Olympics, they're trying to get
Yeah.
the best situation for the Olympics, and it didn't
Yeah.
it didn't work. And now they're faced with the same situation now, but now it's getting down to the wire. It's like less than 3 months
Right.
away, and no one's what 3 million
Yeah,
people are
they
vaccinated here. That's it.
they
So
really should have, if they were so gung ho in the Olympics, they really should have pushed for vaccines
hmm,
a lot sooner. And this is a country that they take health seriously here. Like, the whole process for me to be able to return from the States is a bitch and a half. So it's like, why not have that sort of mindset when you're dealing with your own people, right? And I don't know.
well, I mean, not everybody I talked to, but there's been
Right.
a large number of Japanese people I've talked to. This is anecdotal, by the way, that are against the vaccines, and
Yeah,
you know,
they're
I
they're
can
not
understand
so.
from like an American conspiracy theorist point of view,
Yeah.
but I don't understand that in Japan
I
necessarily.
think, well, Japan's got a history of fudging vaccine rollouts. There was an HPV vaccine that rolled out, I think, 30 years ago.
Hmm.
And I think there was a lot of deaths. I forgot how many, but there was a significant amount of deaths because it wasn't because of the vaccine itself, but it was how they were administering it.
Okay.
And because of it was like, the way they were handling it ended up making it contaminated, and that's how people were dying from it. Like, I forgot how many women died from the vaccine when at that time, but
Jesus.
That sort of scandal is going to, every time there's a massive government push
Hmm.
for something like this, especially when they're when comparing America's government response to the vaccine, both Trump and Biden both were very gung ho on getting this thing rolled out as soon as they could, right? And the people were very receptive to it because I think in America we had this idea, oh, okay, get the vaccine, get everybody vaccinated, and we're going back to normal.
Right.
Because no, I think it's a uniquely it's not a uniquely Japanese thing to want to get back to normal as soon as possible when disaster strikes, right? I think America's got that same mindset too. Americans want to just get back to normal as soon as they can, right? And that's the type of that's the it's a similar mindset, but you have to have a
Hmm.
very coordinated response
Right.
to make sure you're nothing happens, right?
And see, yeah, so I look at, Japan as a country that after World War II, it picked itself up and a miracle, like an economic miracle. It became, at the time, like the second largest economy in the world. It Yeah, even before the war, like you go from like Edo period to Meiji,
Yeah, they're still
like they
pretty
went
strong.
yeah, they went from like medieval period to industrial to modern in a matter of like 50, 60 years. Like
Hmm.
that's amazing. And then the war happened. Then they were able to pick themselves up. Then, things like the giant earthquake and then Fukushima. Like, Japan has been shown to pick itself up after disaster,
Yeah,
but when it comes to this, it just seems like it's a big bungle. Like maybe
yeah, oh yeah.
you know. So,
Because this is one thing that Japan has been having trouble with in the last 30 years, and it's why the economy's been floundering here. When there's no innovation, when there's no uniqueness, right? That's why you see the most successful Japanese companies and businesses, they buck the trends big time, right?
mm-hmm.
And if you look at the guy like oh crap, what's his name? He's the guy who's going to be on that the SpaceX capsule.
Maezawa,
Yeah, Maezawa.
yeah, Zozo Town guy, right? You're
That
right.
yeah, that I mean I don't know shit about Zozo Town, but the guy is a billionaire,
Mm.
and everybody I know who talks about him, they if someone I know from my work met him too, he is the most different person ever. Like he is not your
Eccentric.
typical Japanese person,
Yeah, yeah. I've heard a lot of people hate on him, and I always thought it was kind
Oh
of
yeah, they give him shit.
yeah, unique. And another guy is um, Horeemon Takafumi Horie.
Yep.
He's one. I like his books. I like his way of thinking. He's not a very he could be come across as very brash to some people, especially in
Right.
Japan. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
these guys are very unique in their way of thinking and the way they're bringing business forward.
Right.
So
Yeah, and I feel like that's the most unique people in Japan, like the people who buck the trends and do their own thing. They're the most successful ones.
but you got to be careful with that. Look what happened
Yep.
to because they always if you stand out too much, you get hammered down. I mean, they
Yeah.
tried that
Yeah.
with Horyamon. He was in prison. So for a
Yeah.
while. So
Well, I mean, that's what happened to Carlos Ghosn too. He
yeah,
wanted to merge Nissan and or finish the merger between Nissan and Renault to help Nissan's finances and exports. But the Japanese board members thought that that was unacceptable, so they ended up arresting Carlos Ghosn, and
they railroaded
that's
him
how.
out. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Did you hear
wait,
how he escaped? That was insane.
that's like a movie. That's a future movie right there. I mean,
Yeah, and I feel bad that those two dudes got extradited. That's some bullshit. They really shouldn't have been extradited because
yeah.
and I know there's a treaty between America and Japan, but like
Japan wouldn't have
he's
done
not.
that the other way. So
Yeah, like Carlos Ghosn was never going to get a fair trial here. Never,
never.
never, never, never. They were stacked against him. The people that they were putting on the bench were basically handpicked by Nissan themselves, and then um, the government was just absolutely throwing him under the bus. And those guys who helped him escape were, I think, they were sacrificed, and I don't know what's going to happen, but
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
like, I mean, whether or not Gon did anything, you know,
right,
illegal or not, like you're right. He wasn't ever going to get a fair trial at all. So
um,
he knew this, and he did everything he could. I mean, pretty smart of him too to escape it how he did, and he's off
Yeah,
chilling in Lebanon now. So
yeah, really.
but and luckily for him, Lebanon doesn't have an extradition treaty with
Right,
Japan, so
right,
he's
right. And Japanese officials are just furious. Like it's kind of funny. It's like you guys were caught with your pants down, and
yeah.
So you're exactly right. How he escaped in the music case and stuff through a private airplane at Kansai Airport. That's just
Yeah,
you're exactly right. That needs to be a movie.
yeah, and hired a father son American duo to smuggle him out. Like everything about it just seems really, like it's true. Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. So
Yeah,
it's hilarious when I found that out. But like like I
yeah.
said, yeah, he may have done some bad stuff. I don't know, but at the same time, I was kind of
Oh, we
just kind of
won't know because we're not getting a fair shake at
right,
at his trial.
right.
The actual information is just being shredded by Nissan's brass, and I'm just like, well, that makes you guys look worse, and then that resulted in the guy who got Carlos going in trouble actually resigning and getting arrested and interviewed by the police himself. So
Yeah, I was gonna say he ended up being the fall guy after all too.
yeah,
So oh, it's like I would not want to
karma
work for
there.
that
I'm
company.
like, well,
That
he
that
did
does
his
not sound
service.
like a fun company, at least in the upper brass to work for. All
No,
sorts
not at
of
all.
Game of Thrones type shit going on in there.
Yeah, and it's been like amongst the expat community. There's been like a not so successful, but like a boycott of Nissan. Right?
Mm,
Everyone's like, well, I'm not buying a Nissan right now.
yeah, yeah. I used to like Nissan for a while, and then when
Yeah, my dad had a Nissan. It was
yeah,
a nice car.
yeah. But whew,
Getting one anymore.
yeah, no kidding. So now you've been now currently, are you in Tokyo or are you in
Yeah,
Kanagawa?
I'm in Tokyo.
Okay.
I was thinking of moving to Kanagawa this year, but I ended up not doing so
Hmm.
because pandemic, state of emergency, having to get all the funds together to actually move and all that stuff,
I just went through that,
and
man. Yeah. So that was it
pain
was
in the ass.
it was like 2 months of hell, but like
God, yeah.
because I moved from kind of the Inaka area to down to Tokyo, so during it and switching careers and everything. So that was a very
Yeah.
big step,
Like,
but yeah.
how'd that work? Because, like, you know how the whole landlord situation here, like, some of them are just simply like all no gaijins, right?
Well,
How'd
like
that work out for you? Because you've got a lot more of a stable career, I think.
yeah. So basically, I haven't had, how like some people have their company help them out with their
Right.
apartment. I haven't had that since maybe 8 9 years. I've got my own place, on my own since then, and Tochigi was actually fine.
Nice.
I found a fudosan that were really kind, and they were able to find me a place. And then I came. Actually, I used an app to initially search for places down here, and
Oh, I see. Is it like
and
Sumo or something?
no, it's a Japanese only app. It's called Homes, I think.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I know.
and it connected me with, like, how, like, once you put your information in, like, four or five fudosans are gonna start ringing blowing up your
Yeah.
phone trying to get your business, right? And well, this one called me, and
Hmm.
I looked at a few places, and one of them that wasn't on the list that I was interested in, they said, "Oh, we have one more that we think you might be interested in that fits your criteria," because I had certain criteria I wanted. I wanted, like, at least 2 bedrooms, 20-minute commute to where my workplace was, blah blah blah, like that, right? And
Right.
under a certain amount of rent. And they're like, "How about this place?" And they showed me this place. I'm like, "Okay, it's a little older um, than what I was in before, but it has enough space. It fit all my criteria." And then
Mhm.
I met the landlord is just this really sweet old lady that lives on the top floor, and she's really nice, and it's been fine. Like I've been very lucky, I think, finding apartments in Japan.
Yeah,
So
I had a hell of a time trying to get this place here. Like this is actually not even the size I wanted, but it was down to the wire. I had to move. I was
Right.
like, okay. So I just took it. I mean, I like it though. I've lived here for 4 years, and I just re up my contract again. But um, it's in a convenient location. Like I'm between three stations,
Okay.
basically within walking distance, and it's 30-40 minutes to the beach.
Wow. Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
30 minutes to my office. From door to door, basically, right? But the downside is like, I don't know what my landlord is. It's run by a managing company, right? Like an actual management company, and
Got it.
they don't ask questions, right? That's why they're like, oh well, pay us, you'll be fine, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So the first place I looked at, it was really really pretty. Like it was like 5 minutes walk from from two stations into the same neighborhood, but it was on the other side of the train tracks. But it had a wide open space. It was really nice. And I met with the company. They're like, okay, let's just fill out the paperwork. The company was like, the company wouldn't have talked to me if they didn't have a policy for foreigners, right?
Hmm.
And as I'm getting all the paperwork set up and whatnot, um, they get a call. They're like, oh yeah, sorry, this place is no foreigners. I'm like, this is like I have the contract in my hands, and you guys are now telling me that this is no
Ah,
foreigners, and they're like, "Yeah, we're sorry."
that's some bullshit, dude.
Yeah, I'm like, "What
Yeah.
the hell is this?"
I'd be pissed.
I was furious, man. It was fucked up. I just walked out of there right then. I didn't use that Fidel son, so
Hmm.
they tried to show me a whole bunch of different places afterwards. I'm like, "No, I'm not dealing with you guys because I don't trust you." But the guy I talked to, he was a returnee from America. He was
Okay.
this other guy, right? So the guy who found me this place. He showed me a number of different units, and one of them was actually I liked it a lot, but the Gencom was massive. Like the ceiling was really high.
Hmm.
I could have sort of biked there and skateboards there. It was a loft, right? So the bed would be positioned on a loft. And my apartment in Arizona was actually a similar loft, but you had a massive window and two actual stories in that loft in Arizona, right? But this one over in this neighborhood here that I was looking at, um, my head would be like it was basically down to about here. So I
Oh
would
God.
hit my
Yeah.
head, or if I bring a woman over, right? What's gonna, the
Hmm.
logistics of that, right? So, I was like, man, this is nice, but I don't know. Can I look at the bathroom? As soon as I walk into the bathroom, the door hit me like right here. As I was walking, I'm like, I'm gonna keep hitting my head on this door. So it was really nice. It was modern, but
You had to.
they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is nice. It's cheap. You should take this, man. You should take it. He was really wanting me to take it, but yeah,
I don't. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I'm a tall guy myself. I'm
yeah,
6'3", and even here, like the doors are slightly shorter,
yep,
but it's short enough. It's tall enough to where I can just easily just duck, and not
yeah,
not not deep either. Like it's just like a slight head bop. And that's fine. And yeah,
right.
I've hit it a few times, but nothing I can get used to. Um, you would you would think with more modern apartments now that they make the doorways at least tall enough
Right.
for.
And it's not like Japanese people are still relatively short. Like Shohei Ohtani, for example, famous baseball player, he's 6'3".
No.
Like he's taller than I am. Like so, I've seen tall Japanese dudes a lot, and I feel like they need to start accompanying that.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, man. So, like, when you said your original office was like in
Yes.
Ginza, what made you choose Ginza of all places?
Well, I was looking at different properties because I had an idea for this office, right? I actually wrote out like a floor plan, like a sample
Hmm.
of what it's going to look like, the business model. And I was running it by a number of friends, and I was looking at different commercial properties for the studio. And this guy I worked with on videos in the past, he basically was like, "Yo, we got this. I get this third floor below the co-working space that I run, and you want to come by and use the third floor as the studio?" And I was like, "Okay." That's basically, it was the best offer available. It was in a great location, and it matched what I was trying to do in terms of networking, right?
Right.
So
Hmm.
it was a perfect situation for that time. But The pandemic ended up shutting down that co-working space for one, and then the second thing that happened was the building owners wanted to jack up my rent. Like, I'm like, no, I can't.
Oh man, that yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Shit. So
um,
so now you're where you said in
in Aoyama, yeah,
Aoyama.
and
Okay.
that actually came about in a similar manner. The guy who had the property was like, hey, we need your expertise. We want to open up a studio of it there. And at the time, they're like, do you want to open up, a second studio in this area? I'm like, well, I'm shutting down my normal studio right now. I mean, I need a new place to move it. So he was like, all right, we'll just move it here. So
Cool.
that's how that happened,
What
basically.
so what has been the biggest challenge with having your own company in Japan? I think you said taxes
Simply,
were quite high,
yeah,
but
taxes and just all the legal paperwork I have to fill out every year for visa renewal. And, it's just, especially with the pandemic, it is not steady. You know what I mean?
hmm, right, right,
I mean, it was getting to the point where it was very sustainable until the pandemic, right? And
yeah,
then even
yeah,
after the pandemic hit, throughout like October, November, and December, I was super busy. I had a lot of people coming into the studio. I was making money, and then the second wave hit, and then the government floundering and just making it worse. And this time around, there's no stimulus or any sort of monetary compensation for. Everyone's like, well, you're not, your business, everyone's telling me, they're like, Zach, why are you complaining? Your business isn't being forced or told to shut down. It doesn't matter. It's an in person thing, and
yeah,
people are very skittish about doing stuff in person,
yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, I mean, we can't even meet, you know, clients or any people except for online now. So
yeah.
like all in-person meetings are kind of
Yeah. A lot of
an
the TV
NG at this
people
point.
that I know, like a lot of the people I know who are working on massive TV projects, their production has been suspended since January. They're not getting paid either. It's like, well, come on, you guys got to do something here. They're petitioning the government to say, hey, lift the restrictions so people stop having this thing of like, oh, well, state of emergency, can't do shit, or give us some financial compensation because it's getting old.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like that in between thing.
Yeah,
Either do this or do that, but don't do this in between because it's just going
yeah.
to end up killing businesses. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's going to end up killing business like restaurants.
Well,
Luckily,
it's kind
yeah.
of funny, right, with the restaurants and stuff. Like you get to, well, like all the big, massive department stores in Harajuku are told to shut down. But you walk through the back alleys of Harajuku, those places are having a renaissance right now because
Mm,
that's the only thing that's open, and all these kids are going there, and it's like they're ironically this particular state of emergency is helping them out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I noticed that. Like, I was there last week in Harajuku, and more people were exploring the back, like small
Yeah,
roads and cafes and stuff. Like, I like this. This is cool. Like, yeah.
kind of harkens back to what happened before the massive tourism boom. It's
Mm,
like you have the department stores, but then the real Harajuku was those boutiques and small cafes and stuff.
right. Yeah, yeah.
I'm
And
taking a back sun right here. I got these are lifesavers when my throat's dry.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's this allergies this season have been horrible,
Been
but
nuts. Yeah.
so where do you see like where do you see your company going here in the next year? I guess it's really dependent on
Yeah.
you know.
It's hard to say because I have to make sure that I'm able to, survive the year and make
Mm,
sure everything's set up right. So I'm hoping this. I mean, I got these projects lined up. I got these rather large projects lined up, but I don't know if those are going to be sustainable for the whole year. So I'm hoping I can get more people to use the studio
mm,
and get more smaller projects, like smaller digital media projects. And I've had a few of them throughout the state of emergency, but um, yeah, I'm hoping that's where it leads. I'm hoping that's where you just get a couple of contracts that kind of assure what's happening, right? Assure that that'll be operating, right?
right, right. Yeah. So it's not necessarily, you're not unsure, but at the same time, it still could go one way or the other. It's
Right,
it just
exactly.
yeah, yeah, and that's not always a fun thing to have to worry about either. Have you thought about how long you're? Because you said at some point you'd like to return to the states, maybe. Do you have
Right. I
any
mean,
sort of time frame on that, or are you just sort of
no, there's
enjoying
no time.
yourself? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's good. You're just enjoying the Japan life, and for now, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Basically.
Well, cool, man.
Yeah. I mean, eventually, it's one of those things that I feel like once you know that it's like, yeah, okay, I'm done. I want to do something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I feel
you'll know
like
when the time comes.
people
You'll
have
know.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, people know at some point, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, cool, man. So, where can people find you on the interwebs? I know, obviously,
Yes.
YouTube. So, tell us about that.
All right. So most of my socials have the URL phx787. So that's a bit of an older URL that harkens back to when I lived in Arizona and I was doing I was making aviation videos for YouTube. And my Facebook official page is actually Phoenix Phoemyx 787, and that's also the same for my Twitch. I don't have the URL for Twitch PHX77, so it's Phoenix with the Y instead of an I, and well, instead of an I, right? So PHOEMYX
Okay.
787. That's my Twitch, and that's where I've been streaming video games. That's where you guys can find me. But yeah, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube is all PHX787. So
Cool, cool.
find me there, guys.
Yeah, and I'll link those into the show notes. You guys go check them out. And one final thing, like, what do you hope to do with your YouTube channel in terms of the direction that's going? So right now you're kind of doing
Yeah,
more.
I
Yeah.
really wanted to get to the point where I'm able to kind of. It's actually like I'm not saying I don't want to do YouTube as a career, but I would love to make a significant amount of money from YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I really like watching, I like watching a lot of YouTubers is they do charity events all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I've got a lot of ideas for making, charity events and donations and stuff like that.
Right.
That's where I really want to get my YouTube. I would do like a charity live stream.
Awesome, man. That sounds cool. That sounds cool.
So that's where I hope I can get to my with my YouTube channel is to where I'm able to actually get to this point, right, where and people are able to donate to various charities and stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my
Well.
goal.
Well. Yeah. Keep me updated on that because that definitely be something I'd be interested in promoting as well. Like,
Appreciate that. I mean,
yeah.
I made I didn't make that much money from the sports stream. I was live streaming the NFL draft last week, but it was a very successful stream. I made made a little bit of money,
Hmm.
not a shitload. Obviously, it was just 30 something dollars from donations. But I'm like, that's a great foundation to start.
Yeah. Because you can
And
just grow it from there. So.
precisely, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if I want to do these charity streams and stuff, this would be a great way to do it, like on YouTube, because people can donate via the super chats and stuff, and they can donate. Streamlabs, I believe, has a way for
Hmm.
you to donate
Hmm.
and stuff like that to, if you want to set up a charity stream. So that's exactly what I want to do.
Awesome. That sounds great. Well, Zach, thank you very much for being on today, and
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
it. Everyone, go check them
Thank
out.
you guys for having me.
Yeah, yeah. You have a good one, and
Yep.
we'll talk to you later. Yeah.
Yep. Take care, bro. Take
All
care.
right.